This is Max Drake. I want to talk about Python and using it for getting API information from across the Webby. The issue which we got is we got a greenhouse which is growing some plants, and there's a whole lot of sensors that are checking the environment, and they're checking the water and the pH in the water and the stuff that's going to the plants. So there's a few sensors doing that. There's another whole lot of sensors that are also sensing shade cloth from a different company. With this particular one, there's two ways we can access the information. The controllers that actually control the sensors is basically a wee little computer there. It's actually taking the sensor information in, and you can actually access that and get the sensor data out of an SD card, and it's a month data on a minute interval. So there's something like 42,000 lines of rows of information for a month. The other way is to actually do an API call. So as it actually loads up into the controller then sends that data across to the company's server. Now the company is in the US, that has an implication later on that I'll discuss, and they then use that data and present it back in an app that I think is on a mobile phone and also on a web dashboard, such that they can set max and mins on certain things. So if those are triggered, they can actually get alarms and suddenly saying, oh, you know, humidity's gone right off the chart and it's doing mad things, or you know, certain things are happening. So they can react to those things. So as long as it's in a mean, they can actually see on the graphs how it's performing. So that's the thing. One of the issues that they had, because they were the people who are doing this are reasonably proficient in spreadsheets, and I was talking to them and they said, well look, we've just gone out there and we've actually found all of this data and we've been downloading it all, and we've got something like 12 months worth of stuff coming through here, but it's killing us trying to put, and if we just drag this down to the bottom, you'll see it's, oh sorry, no, that's the wrong one. If we look at the data inside here and just drag it to the bottom, you'll see we've got something like 42,000 lines of data. So trying to put that into an Excel sheet, they just die. So how are we going to manage that? So I said, I'll tell you what, flick them over to me, and I'll just use Python, and we can just put it into data frame and it will just convert it very nicely for you. Now of course you're just suddenly thinking, oh, this is just a 5-minute little job, not a problem. But when I start to look at it, one of the things, there's all these little gotchas that you get. One of the things that actually with this one here is that we got the path to where the files are, and this is the file that we're going to do, and we got one that we're going to write to. And then this one here is we're going to read the CSV file. But this one here took me a little while to hunt. Skip rows 4. I didn't want to go into each particular file and delete all the heads so that I can actually just get to the header. If this is how the information was going to come out each time, I wanted to be able to, instead of deleting all the stuff at the top, I just wanted to read row 5 as a header. So inside the resample, one of the little things on that one were there, skip rows 4, and the header is the next row along. So if it's skipping 4, that means I think 5 rows, because 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And through there, so we've got that one through, and then there's a little bit of jiggery pokery trying to get the date format, because the date format in here is just got a number, so I've somehow got to add the year and the month to that one day, so I end up with a date, and then I end up with an hour, so that I can get that as a timestamp and then start manipulating it. So there's a little bit of messing around that you have to do with that sort of thing, and this is one of the processes which I went through into that to actually get all of that to be set up in that way of using the map. I did it a while back. And at this point we have a data frame with a date, and then all we do is resample on an hour. That means we can take 60 of the minute data, add all of those up, divided by 60, and we're going to get the mean, and that's when we get the hour data. So that hour data is based on the mean of those ones there, and then we'd do it for all of these items through here, but what we've got to do is round. Now a lot of them, if we go back and look at the sample again, you'll see some of them are 2 decimal places, some of them are none decimal places, and some of them are 1 decimal place. So we just want to make sure that we end up with the same formatting at the end. of the right number. So we did a little bit of a rounding in here. Now the reason why that's quite important is when we push it up into the database, it's got the same number of decimal points. If it's got too many, it's just going to say, no, we're not going to accept that. You've got too many dits on the end of it. And then we just send it to a CSV file. Now, I'm writing a lot of things to a CSV file, and the reason why I'm doing this is if in the middle of this manipulation through here something crashes, a little bit breaks, I lose all the data. I don't get anything at the end. The whole data frame just goes blur and you get nothing returned. Unless you do something like a print data frame, you know, on the line before up here. And that's what I'll be doing several times. I'll either do that. Or the other one that I do for testing is I like writing it to a CSV file, and then I can actually look at what the CSV file is actually spitting out to see whether I'd actually achieve what I want. I find the DF info, it doesn't really do it for me, and so that's my preferred way of doing it. So that's my way of testing, and as I go through it, if I find it breaks on line 21, I just suddenly say, oh sorry, if it breaks on line 19, I'll suddenly put on line 18 write to CV, block all of this lot out here, and test that, see what comes out on the CSV file, and then suddenly thinking, I can see where I've gone wrong. So that's just something I wanted to highlight there as I was going through. So as I was doing little baby steps, I wanted to be able to do a chunk of work and then just put it aside and then do the next one. Now with this was doing stuff with Pandas, and they were wrapped with what I was doing with that, and they said, that's fantastic. Now do all the other 12 or 24 files or whatever they were from all of the things. So I went and ran all of those for them and sent them back up to them. But I was a bit uncomfortable. I suddenly thought, no, I'm the only one who's controlling that. I want you to be able to control it too. So what I ended up doing was I ended up looking up Colab. So Colab is, if you've got a Google Drive, there's an app, a free app on there called Colab that you can actually download, and it's basically a Jupyter Notebook. So because where their office is up country, I can't zip up there conveniently. I think they're 600 odd kilometers away. Zip up there and go and install Python on their computers and get all the correct libraries and do all the testing and stuff, and they haven't really got time to do that. Whereas if you use the Colab, you can actually set it up, and on this one here, if I just going to delete these files through here, and I'll just delete that file there. What you can actually do inside Colab, if you come to the side, you can go File, then you can go Upload, and there's a small file here. I found when I was trying to do the big files, it sort of crashed. So I don't know, but I had tested them on the big files and it seemed to work. So it's actually loaded it up now, so I can actually write that file name inside there, which I've done. I put the date, correct date in, so it's 2021 and the 12th. Now if I run this, so I'm just going to run the first one, it's already run, but just to make sure that we've got that running. And then I can run this one here. That's successfully run, and they can now download the file. So you can give the download file name, and if I just open up that one there, it'll be the file that we want. And the date is in a date timestamp format. It converts itself when it goes into Excel, but the information's coming through as it should. So that's very pleasing. Apart from let's just go back and look at that one. We can get the data coming through there. So that's quite easy. They can run that. So if they can do Excel, they can run that sort of thing there. So all I need to do is give them a link to that. They can actually just download Colab onto their Google Drive. So all they actually need is a Gmail account, and they get a Gmail drive, and they can actually just run it up and do it. And so they can actually download the file that they actually want to run, and then they can upload the file that they actually want to run, and then download it. So they can do their own resampling themselves. So that means they have control of that. So I'm quite pleased with that part of it. So at this point, we've sort of got control over just doing being able to get the information via the first method, which is to go out to the controllers, get an SD card, stick it into the computer, and do it. But that only gets that information as far as a file. Now this is a concern which I also had as well. Suddenly there's so much data in these things that we can end up with a massive amount of files. And then where are they going to be stored? They're going to be stored on a G drive or a OneDrive or a Dropbox or something like that, so that everybody can access them, and then they've got to be set in order and all of this. And I suddenly say, no, that's not the way to do this, because you'll be spending half your time trying to find the file that you want, and it'll only most probably be for a monthly data. So the way to do that, so sorry, if we just ran the other one, so on this one here, I think I ran that one through there, and when we look at the data through there, we'll see that instead of the 42,000 lines, we end up with about 721 lines of data. So that's quite nice. Makes it an awful lot easier for what they needed to do. So they can manage that very easily in Excel. But I said, no, we've got to put it somewhere useful so that it can actually be accessed and it can manage large amounts of data. So I said, well, look, I've got a VPS that we can start off with at this point in time. So a virtual private server, or basically a web domain that I've got somewhere, and it's got a database on it. So let's just put everything into a database. So we've got a remote database such that everybody can access that information from everywhere. So if we shove all of this data up there, we can then use it and manipulate it. So that was an important thing. We're going to end up gathering an awful lot of data. We don't want it going around all over the place, but we want to put it into a central location where it can be easily managed. And with a database, you can easily do a whole load of queries and stuff like that. And I will be talking about some of that issue later on. So this is the process of getting some API information off these things in the format that we actually want, and then pushing it up into the database. And at the same time, creating a file that we can copy across to the people up there. So they're comfortable with the CSV file, which is for daily, but they can also access the vast amount of data as well. And we'll talk about how to do that. So this is the first part of the thing that I wanted to go through, and the way of, although I'm the only one who's doing the coding here, other people can use those tools without actually having Python or having to load specific libraries or this and that and the other, or they've just got the Colab up there and it does all the things that they want. So that's great. So that's as far as I want to take this one. The next one, we're going to start looking at the API and what it does. This is, I've got two different APIs. This one is quite easy. The other one is got some quite quirky things in it that need me to do a little bit of rethinking. So end of this video at the moment. I hope you found that useful. Thank you very much for watching.